Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so hey everybody, welcome to our talk. It's called Empire of Oil, from documentary to performing arts to VR. I'm Erik.
Hi, and my name is Felix. Yesterday we were speaking about how to introduce everything that we do here. So we have been observing closely, of course, all the dynamics that are also a topic here at the Republica with Mark Zuckerberg and like the Senate hearing and the Cambridge Analytica and all of these things. And clearly, this is about the data age that we have the first time in situation in history where producing a resource is the same as consuming a resource through social media services. And the fact that production is the same as consumption is absolutely unbelievable. And we are seeing all these conflicts with the laws and the new laws and the Senate hearings and everything of the taking the influence on elections and everything, because taking charge and hegemony over resources has always been in history a very decisive process. So at the same time, we're looking at all this data and all the products that allow us producing and consuming data is still very much based on the extraction of the resource oil and obviously the consumption of oil. So locating ourselves and our search for topics that are important to us, we decided to step back and look at oil production and the people who are producing oil, or the people who are standing against it, or people who are looking or living in the context of oil production and suffering from the conflicts around it.
So but first of all, we want to quickly go through our agenda today. So first of all, we are going to talk about who we actually are and what we do. The next thing we want to show is a short video of the work we did so far. And then we want to recap and to talk a little bit about what does the project do so far and how does it stand or where does it stand. And we want to really question the people, the oil, the bubble itself afterwards. And then take a look at how this relates to virtual reality. And then also something that we call confront and continue, where we actually want to ask some questions also to ourselves and want to talk about what are the next steps in our work.
If we get so far, yes. Okay, so short introduction to how we came up with all these topics and all these interests. So basically, I have a master in geography and a work experience in international development and cooperation. But then I studied directing and turned to the arts and founded the Costa Compagnie basically.
Yeah, and I'm actually a computer engineer, which then somehow turned into media artist, and I'm focusing on audiovisual programming right now. And I used to work for Native Instruments here in Berlin. I don't know if you know them, and also recently started working as a part-time developer for the Ethereum Foundation and creating the Solidity programming language here. And my role in Costa Compagnie is basically the mapping and video production and all the technical questions that we had during the process.
And who I am missing today, unfortunately, is Zahava Rodrigo. And she created the stage and the costumes and was majorly responsible for a lot of the artistic work around this. But unfortunately, she can't be here today, as many other members of our group. So Costa Compagnie, we're based in Berlin and in Hamburg, and we are an artist group working on global transformational processes most of the time documentary-based. We work at the performing arts and in the visual arts, so presenting stuff in galleries, but also in theaters and production houses. And the places we've been going to so far is mostly outside of Europe. So we've been going to Afghanistan and looking at the drawdown of the forces, to Lebanon, to Israel, to Russia, to the United States, and other places, Japan. And for this project, we went to Iraq, northern Iraq, and to Norway.
Okay, so then we want to continue to show you some pictures, actually, of the project. So first, this is how we met, actually. We met in the 360 lab, where we wanted to find out, okay, what are the cameras we are going to use there for this project, how a projection space can look like. So we had this actual bubble that was blown up, where a performance took place in. So we can also...
Yeah, and the images, if I jump right in there, that you just saw were at the G20 summit in Hamburg, where we went with a 360 camera on the head, and then we also tried to work with a choreographic instruments, also then again with a 360 camera on the head to get the perspective of a dancer in there.
Yeah, so this is the Omni in Norway, actually. This is Felix in Norway.
Yeah. This is at the referendum in Kurdistan, so the autonomous region of Kurdistan, when the referendum was taking place in last September. We were there, which led to, of course, a lot more conflict after a while. These gentlemen have just been giving their vote and showing off proudly the fingers of participating in the vote. This is in Mosul, and this picture is very conflicting, but we will talk about that. Mm-hmm. This is also in Mosul. And there we take an interview in Suleimania with a young poet. And yeah.
Yeah, so and this is actually how the stage looked like during the creation of this mapping. So yeah, it's looking like an holodeck actually. So, but we will talk about this later. And this is also a picture from the theater itself, right before the audience entered the space. But we will talk about this then.
And here you can also, or you could also see in the picture back that we would also record the performances that we were doing again with the GoPro Omni in order to have a 360 documentation of the piece and later on use that in VR.
Okay, so but then let's quickly go back to what we actually do here.
Let's show the video.
Oh, we can also just show the video, yeah. Can you hear anything? Ah, okay, that's starting.
Everything is based on oil. But there is a growing awareness of the environmental impact, and that's going to be more and more highlighted for each generation, the future generations, as far as I believe. But the question is, when do we really realize how dependent we have been or is actually on these resources? Because, like I said, everyone is funded by oil money.
It's like a Call of Duty, really. Building on fire, people are dead, army clubs in the street, cars on fire, everything. You don't know, it's like an imagination. Crowd, the city, people are running, shouting, don't know what happens, it's like a doomsday.
In Norway, as you said, the oil became the Norway's wealth. But here, I think it will be a very different thing for us. We have suffered from all of these genocide campaigns, all of these war and violence because we have got oil here. They want us to be Arab. They want us to be Turks, to be Persian, not Kurdish, because they want to get our oil.
This is many years they said we will stop, but they will never stop it. This is business. This is how is life going on.
Like the so-called refugee crisis that has hit Europe is, I don't think it's nothing compared to what it's going to be when like climate change hits the globe real time. There's going to be like millions and millions of people who just need to leave their homes because they can't live there anymore.
Bergekongen har seg en ganger spak, brunfålen løyper lett. Han setter lite kjærsi på sin bak, men det regner og det blæs. For langt nord om fjellom, djupt under hellom, der leiker det.
Sie schrieb, ihre Berichte seien in keinster Weise adäquate Beschreibungen der massiven Ölförderung oder des stattgefundenen unbeschreiblichen Kriegselends. Der Krieg sei immer schlimmer, als man es in Worte zu fassen vermochte. Und die Dimensionen der Ölförderung, der Vertrieb, Verbrauch und die klimatologischen Konsequenzen der Emissionen seien viel zu global, viel zu gigantisch, um sie in der eigenen Vorstellung nachempfinden zu können. Sie könne nur berichten, was sie sah und welche Gedanken und Gefühle es hervorgerufen hätte.
You said I'm into video games a lot. And when I came back at 6 a.m., half 7, it's like Call of Duty. Call of Duty. He said there were buildings on fire. Buildings on fire. Buildings on fire. Buildings on fire. People are dead. Army closing the street. Cars on fire. Everything, everything. Cars on fire. It's like imagination.
Okay, please. Oh. Please excuse the bad sound on this one because there is a transmission to the system. Okay, never mind. But so the questions that we started this research with were basically very simple. Like, does the resource entail a social state utopia, as maybe in Norway, or does it, create ongoing, everlasting conflict, like in Iraq? Then, of course, we wanted to know what are the experiences of the oil workers or the people living in their context, and what are the experiences of the people fighting fossil fuels. And then also for us as artists, we wanted to find out if there are certain aesthetics to the oil-rich underground, to the hidden. So what you just saw in the first part, that was basically the documentary part. It was called Part 1, a research in 360, and was basically a hybrid of a documentary film and a 360 video installation in this cyclorama-stage that Erik was speaking about. And the long version in November was still 100 minutes long. Now we reduced it to 80 minutes. And then now in the end of this month, we will connect it to the second and the third part.
Yeah, so as you've seen, like we call it the holodeck, where we created the space actually, and yeah, so we worked together with our stage designer Zahava, and then we tried to find out like how can we actually create this piece. So we had the material that Felix came back with from Iraq, so we had the 360 images, the videos, and then the big question was, okay, how can we project this onto like a cyclic cylindric screen? And and we also had this idea in our head that we wanted to create like this immersion that people can wander around with their eyes. They can look around actually, but they're not alone. They're not just like underneath their VR headsets. They experience what we call like a shared immersion, something like that. And so they were able to experience that together.
So, and this experience for us was really for them to understand, to make the connection between territorially oil and the political independence, for example, here in northern Iraq and Erbil, where the whole use of the resource was so closely connected to the referendum that took place. And this was the case in Kurdistan, but then we also went to Mosul and to Kirkuk. And Mosul, of course, because it represents completely the very much worse case of a destroyed city by multi-factioned armed groups and armies and countries even, while Kirkuk, on the other hand, is on the brink to falling into war, because there mostly it's like the oil capital of the region, and it also inhabits a great diversity in ethnic backgrounds and political factions, which also rises to more conflict at the moment. In Norway, interestingly enough, there were just the parliamentary elections coming up, and we talked to, among many others, to a Greenpeace activist who just returned from the Arctic, where they tried to stop the new oil drilling exploration, and they were also suing the government. They lost the case in the beginning of this year, but it was quite interesting to talk to the only person that we could meet who was actually standing against oil, because in Norway, many people in society depend on the use and selling the resource, and they created this very unique system of sharing most of the profit into society, into the education, the health, the infrastructure and everything. So it was interesting to see how conflicted the society is at the moment, while seeing climate change on one hand, also profiting so much into the good, basically.
Yeah, so and what this then turned out was that we showed this 360 video on our stage on the cyclorama. And as you also already saw in the video, we had two performers, so Inger, the Norwegian singer, and also Mevan, a Kurdish buzuk player. And what you've also seen was the recap of part 2. And part 2 was basically a more abstract abstract way to research like our experiences with this space and with the material, and step back and look a little bit from the outside what happened there. And so we also had like a video essay and 2 actors and 2 performers that entered the space and performed like a lecture performance there, and also, as you might have seen in the video, they were also dancing there. And this was called The Underground Frontier, and it's basically the question of how can we create this place which we call like the underground frontier, where we want to, which is not meant in like old colonial terms like the wild or the unknown or the wilderness, but it's like really this place where the oil comes from in a way.
And then what we also did at the end of this, we created like a mind strip where everybody closes his and her eyes, and then we take the people to meet a loved one in their own past, and then we take them on a trip through a kind of post-climate catastrophe world, where they go on, they are escaping from a city underwater, and they go into like this desert area where there are like oil rigs stranded in the dry, and then through this they enter the underground frontier. But basically what we wanted here was to create an analog immersion and come back to the oldest virtual reality, which is fantasy basically, but also to connect emotionally to the topic and replay these images that they saw from reality. Yeah.
Yeah, so should I quickly talk about the technical challenges we had there?
Yeah, real quick maybe, because we're running out of time.
Oh,
also.
yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, so I will make it quick here. So we had some issues with the fabric we've chosen. So we had a lot of folds, and because of the space we created this in the theater, we didn't have so much space to set up like big projectors. So we had to use short throw projectors, which have like this fisheye optics, and so this exponentially multiplied the difficulty to create the mapping, because in the end I was mapping the folds, I had the feeling, in a way. And so yeah, I started with some written code by myself, but then I went to a commercial solution for that. Yeah, so and then maybe we should just quickly jump to the next chapter here.
Well, just to announce that at the end of the month we will create a third, or we're creating it right now, the third part, an infinite ending, where two dancers are tackling all this footage, not by dancing out the oil conflict now, but like just working with body, slowness and speed, to work into the different creation and consumption of oil, basically. We will film all of this to then create a VR installation. Tomorrow we will have a preview here at Republica. And there we will mix the images from the research with the images from the performance and connect those two. So you're able to stand in Mosul and looking at the environment. Next thing, you're standing in the middle of the audience, looking together in the shared immersion at these same images and listening to the voices of the people we talk to. And then in the next thing, you might be standing on top of a cliff somewhere on a fjord or something, looking at an oil rig that is parking down there in the fjord. And then also we will be able, and this is the big positive side here, that we are then actually able to blend these omni footage things together and create dystopic or utopic worlds where we're blending the different performative and research worlds of the so-called global north or global south together with the interview partners. And the last very important thing for us here to record the performances is to also play them back to the people that we interviewed, so that in Iraq you can be sitting with VR glasses or just moving your cell phone around, and that you can see where these interviews went to, and to see our artistic choices and how we use the footage, so that we are able to connect out there again to the people that we interviewed, and this kind of democratize the medium also a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, and we also wanted to, what Felix mentioned also, was that we really want to see what does this do to us. So like, what does it do to me if I'm looking at like this post-apocalyptic Iraq with like destroyed houses and like oil rigs drilling in the Arctic? And then the question is that like the future? Is like there any hope? I mean, we have a lot of questions here. So are we driving towards like a utopia or dystopia? And coming back to like the topic of energy consumption, which like really drives our technology here. So the question is how we deal with that in the future. Yeah, and I mean, like also what we wanted to create like here with this work in Berlin is that we want to shorten the distance actually to these crisis regions. And also wanted to tackle maybe like the separation process that we can see also in society. And also we want to help people to experience this with each other, and like share emotions, share feelings, yeah, and so on.
Okay, and I'm trying to wrap this up, what we still have left here. And then maybe give away to the audience a little bit, and we started a bit late, so hopefully we can have 5 minutes more. But yeah, I mean, basically, to connect it also to Republica here, and the question of the bubble or popping the bubble, you know, is really for us, are we able to create a window out into the world, or are we creating just another new bubble, like our own little artist bubble with the audience together, you know, shutting it off again, also through the artistic choices that we make or not. So this is the big question behind all of this, obviously. And if we zoom in out into virtual reality and the technological and ethical and artistic questions behind it, is that, of course, how does VR really make us relate to reality is a big question here, and it's not an uncommon one. And is the enlarged world view possible or not? And just for me personally, I can say that when I looked again at the images of Norway or even of Mosul, of Kirkuk, like I felt right back into the place with the same anxiety, curiousness, excitement, anger and fascination at the same time. But this is possibly because I have been there and I've seen these places, and I was able to speak to the people with a certain amount of time. And the question is, can people also have that experience if they have not been there, only through looking at the pictures? But I do think possibly that it is available or possible to create this greater empathy. And this is not only, but also, I think, important in regard to the situation of many refugees that we can welcome here. So the question could also be, with these type of works, can we show these experiences to teachers, to politicians, to social workers, to children even, to create and activate a larger understanding here? And I think we can, under certain circumstances, to make these witnesses become witnesses, being together with us in a space. But there are many implications, how we found out on the process with VR, creating, another level of voyeurism when you're dealing with trauma, when you're dealing with conflicts and crisis regions, and what can we expose, what do we have to hide, actually. And this is always the critical questions that we ask ourselves as artists dealing with the biographies of people or entering their spaces. But in our belief, it is that as long as we listen and give enough time, give enough of respect, and never pretend as if we really know what it's like to live in a crisis regions, or if we really can possess that type of material, but that we are only able to forward it in a certain type of way, but that we are never actually able to pretend as if we would know, but rather to, act as a messenger, basically, here. There's so much more. Let's see if we have something that is super important that we want to get rid of. We mentioned the limit of 360s. Maybe, like, for us, it would be super cool if we could at least have 2, 3, 4 questions from the audience. Also, if you do have any experiences that are related to this, because there have been all these other wonderful talks here addressing kind of the same topic in different ways. So maybe you can share some of your experiences also in relation to the matter. That would be super cool.